All right. Trying to get Facebook Live. Hey, Facebook Live is here too. And my Zoom friends are here. And it is time for another great Tuesday evening talking about Christmassy things. So thanks all of you for joining. Oh, and the pictures are starting to show up. All of you were blacked out, but now I can see you. Good to see all of you. Jen, Casey, and Angela, and I can't see you, but that's okay. I can't see Matt yet. Brad and Davin, nice to have you guys. The rest of you, hi. Let me pray for us. Father, thanks for the time. We do appreciate you giving us time to talk about you and your word and these ancient scriptures that you give us. And we ask that you would help us to understand and maybe broaden our minds a little bit today. But most of all, we want to see Jesus and we want to see him the way you want us to see him. So help us in that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, let's go. All right, so it's almost Christmas. We're in the middle of this Advent season. Here's my traditional caveat. We do weird things on here. I'm going to throw out ideas that might not be the norm, things you're not used to. So we jump outside the box, but we're jumping back in eventually, I promise. In the meantime, we're going to go crazy on a passage that you know really well. So lots of cool questions that I have that maybe you guys can answer. So the first question is for you all. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself so you can join me in this. Coolest Christmas traditions. What's the thing that you do that you really like doing every year?
Chopping down a Christmas tree.
Okay, chopping down a Christmas tree. That's a good one. So you go out to like the forest or do you go to like a Christmas tree farm?
We go to Hensler's, which is like 45 minutes from us.
All right. And it's a whole thing, you and the kids, and it's freezing cold and all that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you take like a tractor out to the trees?
Yes, we do.
All right. Okay. I know that story. Okay. What else? Anybody else got something they love doing?
Watching Christmas Vacation.
Watching Christmas Vacation. All right. Chevy Chase, right? Christmas Vacation? Yeah.
Yes. That one.
All right. That's also Travis's.
Thanksgiving night.
And Sarah's what? She passed away
30 years ago.
30 years ago. Grace passed away 30 years ago.
Come on, Jace.
Grace passed away.
Oh, so it's from the movie. Okay, that wasn't my thing. That was
yeah.
all right. You're with him. Okay, I gotcha. It's from the movie. Yeah, Jack used to love watching Christmas Vacation with her brother. I just did not understand it. So
You didn't like it?
no.
And when you watch Christmas Vacation, you also bust out the green and red M&Ms same time.
Oh, what did you say?
The greeting rat.
Green and red M&Ms.
M&Ms.
M&Ms, green and red M&Ms. Oh yeah, that's a good one. I'm in for that one. Yeah, you can send me some of those. Anybody else have any cool Christmas traditions? Nothing. You guys are boring.
We have a bunch of Legos.
You have a bunch of Legos?
Oh, I saw that on Facebook.
Oh wow, cool.
So they have to be built.
That's nice. All right.
There's a bunch more in the basement, but I haven't built yet.
All right. So Christmas tradition is building some Lego kit every year. It's a good one. All right.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm still in the car, but I started a tradition a couple years ago where I tie yarn for each of my kids as a different color, and I tie yarn between somewhere in their bedroom to the tree and like create like a booby trap maze kind of thing that they have to do they have to get to the Christmas tree before they can open any presents. It's supposed to buy me some time to like sleep extra. So, but the older they get, the less that actually works out for me.
Yeah, and the fact that you probably spent an hour putting the yarn up when you could have just been sleeping the night before.
Actually, a lot longer, but we don't talk about that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's a great tradition. It's funny. So I guess all the yarn like crosses and goes all around the house in different places, and so they have to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
All right. I like that. I was thinking even better would be like the entrapment, where the yarn, they have to get through without touching any of the yarn. Dun, 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 they're going.
Yeah, I like that.
Hey, Davin, we're gonna do something like that sometime.
We've done that before.
What was that, Travis?
I said, we've done that before with the kids.
Huh, really? Okay, so this must be something that I've never heard of before. That's cool.
It's a laser maze, with yarn, pretend they're lasers.
Nice. All right. Well, okay. Here's the second question I have for you. Well, let me I'll get to the second question. All right. So I don't remember who said it. Maybe it was Casey because I couldn't see him, but something about the Christmas tree, getting the Christmas tree from the Christmas tree farm. So this is where it all begins for me. Okay. So, and it all leads to this moment, that precious moment. I don't know if it's in Christmas Vacation or not, but that moment when, the little kid is lifted up and they put the star up on the top of the tree and then Christmas is all good from there on out. You guys know what I'm talking about. The idea, at least in your head. All right. That moment has never worked in my family ever. So I have this kind of animosity towards this whole holiday in general. So here's where the Scrooge in me comes out, okay? So what Casey or whoever said that was talking about is the beginning of my hell, okay? So usually somewhere in June or July, my wife used to start the countdown for this moment. And not the moment of Christmas, no, the moment of the day after Thanksgiving when I would say, now you may legally start celebrating this holiday. And she did that second, as soon as it was. And we would go on Friday after Thanksgiving, we would all head to the Christmas tree farm with 3 little toddlers, and we would go on, do the same thing, get on the tractor with the hay and a saw in the hands of each of my children. I don't know how, we didn't need 3, but sometimes they would each get one because they all wanted to have a cool saw. As we're heading towards the tree farm. And then the job was to find a Christmas tree, but of course, no one cared about finding the Christmas tree except for Papa. I'm the only one. Everyone else wanted to have a fight, run through the trees like they lived in Narnia, and just throw things at each other, sit on top of the trees that never made it, that only made it to like 2 feet tall and then died, and break off branches of those and beat people with them. And my wife would love it. She'd be running through the trees with them, stacked coats, the snot just running and turning frozen as they go. So they've just got like these snot run frozen going through. And I'm just trying, like, can we just find the tree? And they're like, it's good. That's a good one, right? And they're just fighting and yelling and put the saw down. This is my idea of the moment where that tree topper is put on the tree. Okay, all of their excitement, all of my misery. And no, it doesn't end there, right? You got to get the tree, you have to cut it down. All the kids want to cut it down, okay? But they're all cutting in weird directions. Of course, the tree finally falls after I cut like 98% through, and then someone does it. Then I have to carry the tree while they're all running, having a great time. I have to put it onto the treetop, on top of the car. My hands are this stinking sap-filled conifer. I'm just hating it every second. I get home, everybody jumps out of the car, runs in for hot chocolate. I'm cutting the netting off the tree. I'm putting it up. I'm yanking that thing through the door where the needles just everywhere, all over the stinking living room, right? This is my idea of this beautiful moment that all of you look forward to. Nobody's smiling, but this is how I think about this, okay? So all this to get to that moment where we're wrapping the thing with lights and we're doing all the great stuff there. The kids aren't helping, of course. They're forced to help with putting the actual ornaments on. We force them to do that. Yes, you never help unless I made you. Yep. And usually they get sick of it pretty soon because they're watching something, probably something cool like Elf, not Christmas Vacation, or Die Hard, real Christmas movies. And then that moment where they put that, whatever that thing is. So here's my second question. What is that thing that goes on top of your tree? What's the coolest thing you've seen and what do you use? What's your tree topper?
An angel.
Yours is an angel?
Yeah.
For all growing up, always an angel? And now in your new family, an angel?
We don't even have a tree.
You don't even have a tree. Are you gonna get a tree?
No.
You're gonna get a branch.
No.
Nothing. Okay, so you're a party pooper. No, no tree for you. Okay.
Paul, Festivus Paul?
A Festivus pole. There you go. There's that.
Yeah,
Festivus
we
for the
have
rest of
gnomes.
us.
We have gnomes.
You have gnomes. All right. That's good. All right. Those of you who are celebrating Christmas this year, do you have something you put on top of the tree?
Star.
A star. Kathy says she's got a star. Okay. That's the only legit thing. It has to be a star. Brad says a star. Okay. Nope. Travis says no.
Red, we have an angel.
You have an angel. All right. You and Josh are at the angel theme. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anyone see anything cool ever?
A bow.
A bow. A bow is a good one. Yeah. Okay.
I've got a kid's book where there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex cookie that goes on top of the tree.
There you go. That sounds way cooler.
With a Santa,
With what?
with a Santa hat.
Of course, he has to have a Santa hat. I mean, you got to stay Christmassy, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other cool things anyone saw? I've seen snowmen, gingerbread men, Glenna the good witch, or is she the evil witch? I've seen her up there.
The Myers have a ceiling on top of theirs because they hang theirs upside down in the traditional fashion.
In traditional fashion, it's
Like-
traditional to hang it upside down.
Apparently,
To what? What tradition? Who is this?
German, I believe, or something like that. I don't know. You hang it up. You hang it from the ceiling upside down.
So Martin Luther must have come up with that idea of hanging it upside down. I don't know. I've seen Elvis. I've seen Tinkerbell. I've seen Yoda. I've seen entire Star Wars trees. Right.
Back to the Middle Ages when Europeans employed the act in order to represent the Holy Trinity. Saint Boniface, a Benedictine monk.
All right.
Have you seen the new Star Wars tree topper, Jace?
I don't know. I'm guessing it's Grogu. It's the little baby Yoda.
After, later tonight, Google Hallmark Star Wars ornament and see what you see.
Okay.
It's a star, but it's a special kind of star,
Wow.
a death star.
Go ahead. She's saying no. My
Check it
guess is
out.
my guess is there's 4 people right now looking that up for me, so I probably won't have to look it up. So, because not everyone wants to know. They're not interested in what I'm going to teach now. They just want to know what is this new thing that is happening.
You gotta check it out.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Who is that? Is that Matt's? No, because I see Matt somewhere else.
it's Matt.
Oh, it is Matt. Okay, so I've Matt in 2 squares. Yeah, that's a great looking tree, dude. And you got a fantastic star. Man, okay, Josh,
Oh,
has to look
yeah.
at that star. That's
Nice.
yeah, my problem. This is my problem with this whole thing, is that we've never had a star that worked. Like we've always gotten some sort. We had an angel for a long time, and my wife never liked it. And every year we would look for a star, and we'd get something. We'd bring it home. It was always too heavy, and it would bend the tree over, or it was too light and wouldn't have, or we wouldn't light up in any way. Like we've never had a star. I think I still have a star in a package in my attic that we haven't tried yet. Just a new one that one day I'm going to put on my new tree at some point. But it's never worked. I find myself using like kite string or invisible thread to try and like hold it up and pin it to the wall somewhere in the back. I actually put hooks in the wall in one house that I owned, just so I could make sure that it was nice and neat. So all that to say, I got some problems with this whole Christmas star thing going on. Okay, from my history all the way back. I don't want to blame my parents. I made sure that, you know, that I don't remember what kind of star. I think we had an angel in my house growing up, right? Didn't we, Pop?
Psychologically damaged.
Yeah, I'm psychologically damaged. It's true from all this. All right, so but the Christmas star is what we're talking about today. Woo-hoo. So Matthew chapter 2 is where we're at, and do you want to be there? So we're actually going to like walk through this text and look at it and ask some questions and answer some questions. And I kind of want to start though with a passage in Isaiah chapter 60. So you can look at that or you don't have to, but it says this: "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn." Okay. Now, that is our launching point for everything else that we're going to do in Matthew. I'm hoping that you're going to see Matthew in light of this passage somehow. That I think that Matthew's doing something with this passage and with one in Ezekiel that is different than you've probably heard in Christmas sermons before, because that's the whole reason you tune in, right? Is to hear something a little bit weird. Otherwise, if I'm giving you the same thing everyone else is giving you, you're like, I can just go to church for this. I don't need this. So, all right, so here we go. In a period of darkness, Israel is called to get up because the light of God, the glory of God is here. Yahweh has risen, the glory has risen up. That's the big picture theme. And the nations will come to your light, and the kings will come to your dawn, or to the brightness of your dawn. All right, so now Matthew chapter 2, we're going to read all the way through verse 12. But I'm going to let somebody else read it. Someone's got a Bible there, and you got to read it with like, an R.C. Sproul voice, or just with power. It can't be boring. This is a great passage. Who's going to take, now that I've set it up, you have to fail. Who's going to read it?
The Bible. Matthew?
Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 12.
1 or 2?
Chapter 2. Nice to see all you Facebook people. Glad to have you.
All right, here we go.
All right, we're ready. Matthew 2, go.
After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people, Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route.
All right, awesome. Can somebody give me a 30-second summary of what you just read? Who's got who thinks they've got it?
The wise men followed the star.
Okay, wise men followed a star.
The
That's not
star.
The star, okay. To what? Keep going, give me a summary. There's more.
To find the Messiah.
All right. And where'd they go first?
Talked to Herod
Okay,
and then took off for Bethlehem.
all right. And there they find this child, this king. They leave some things with him, some presents, I guess.
Given presents, yep.
Okay.
3 wise men go to a king and ask, "Where's the king?"
Oh, okay, good. That's a different way of saying it.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm the king."
Right.
He's like, "I'm gonna go."
Yeah, there's a new king, dude. Yeah, okay. All right. And we're going to get to that part of the storyline, which is obviously right there. But we hear Herod's reaction. That'll be next week. Because Herod is a big piece of all this. We're going to kind of try to ignore him as much as we can this time in order to push him off till next time. Because I think what's going on with him is this whole, I think there's something really cool going on with him too that we need to see. All right, so basic storyline we get. Magi coming from somewhere from the east, looking for a king, go to the king to ask where the king is. They follow the star, they get to the king, they give him gifts, they go home. That's our basic storyline.
To
All right.
avoid the,
What was that?
they go home to avoid the king.
That's right, and to avoid the king. Yep. All right. So now, what would be some natural questions that you would come up with if you're reading this story? Just, there's only 12 verses. So what are some things that would just come up if you haven't heard this story all of your life? And
What
just
the heck, Magi?
say, what about the Magi?
What the heck's a Magi?
What the heck is a Magi? Okay, that's a great question. Yep. That's the only question you guys have.
Where in the East?
All right, where in the East? Where are they coming from? Okay,
What's up with the magical star?
what's up with the magical star? I love that way of answering that question. Yep. Yeah.
Josh said a thing. Hold on. Where'd it go?
Yeah.
The Bible is into astrology.
Okay, yeah. Bible's into astrology. Yeah, so they're following stars. Is that what it means to follow the star? That they were just following some patterns in the heavens, or were they following an actual star? Right? So yeah, back to that question that Sarah said, what the heck about this magical star? Okay, is it a magic star or is it an astrological thing going on there? All right, so
Why doesn't the king of the Jews know the main prophecy about the Messiah? Why does he have to go ask everybody else?
yeah, that's a good question too. How come he's clueless to this whole thing? Yeah. And additional questions like, how come no one else has seen the star that apparently is, they've been traveling for a long time. If it's a star, it's going to, wouldn't everybody be like, what the heck's going on? It's not make the news, the Jerusalem news, the Israel Gazette. I don't know what it would be. It would be big news.
I
Right.
think God gave them the intelligence to know to follow a certain star, and other people may have seen the star, but they didn't realize what it was.
Okay. All right. So that is a very good possibility, except for there's a little clue in the text that tells us this might not be just something like that. Right? That little clue in the text is that it seemed to settle over the house where the child was.
Then why'd they go to Jerusalem?
Then why would they go to Jerusalem? Okay. Yeah. Good question. So
Maybe it led them there first to upset Herod.
Okay, these are good possible answers. All right, so what we're doing when we start doing this, by the way, as soon as we start answering some of these questions, we're doing something we call midrash. You've heard me mention this before when we do hermeneutics. We talk about midrash. Midrash is a homiletical way of dealing with Tanakh. All right, so big words, right? Homiletical just means kind of preaching. It's a way of sermonizing, and with Tanakh, Torah, Nevuim, Ketuvim. So first 5 books, the Nevuim are the prophets, and the Ketuvim are the writings. So basically, they're Hebrew Bible. Okay, so it's sermonizing about their Hebrew Bible. We call this midrash. So it's when preachers sermonize, I mean, sometimes they're exegeting text, they're telling you the story, but sometimes they're sermonizing. You know what I mean when I say that? Sometimes they're elaborating, they're exaggerating even. They're telling a story with an artistic flair. They're adding cool details. So the ones people remember when I do are things like, well, Jesus climbing. For those of you at Presby, we did the Sermon on the Mount. Every week I said, Jesus climbed up, he pulled up a rock on the mountain, pulled out a Gatorade, had a little swig, and then started preaching. Okay, that's midrash. He didn't have any Gatorade, right? Some of you think immediately when you think of Moses and at that Red Sea, right? And his hands go up over it, and you can hear maybe the Hallelujah chorus in the background, and the wind is, and his hair is all up, and it's just a powerful moment. That's midrash. We don't know whether he did that or he just went, okay, the sea is moving now, right? We don't know exactly. We're adding all these cool, clever embellishments to tell a story. Because nobody wants to hear a story, ladies. Let me just tell you this right now. Okay. Men don't want to come home and hear a story that you haven't thought through. Okay. Think through your story, give it some good details, so we can actually listen and not be bored out of our mind. Ladies smiling. I'm like, no, they're all shaking their head. Like,
I thought I was
why
the
do we
only-
stop and listen to
I
you?
thought I was the only one.
Yes, we don't like listening to your boring stories. All right, we want to hear them told with some flair, some beauty. Even the guys are like, we're not saying anything. We're not even going to look in your direction. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just move on then. Okay. So that's what midrash is, and this is what we're going to be doing today. So here's what I'm going to admit to you up front. I am going to do a midrash of this story. Okay. So that means that I'm going to make up details for fun. Okay. But I'm telling you this ahead of time for a reason, because what I want to show you at the end is very important to this whole thing that I'm going to be doing all the way through this. Okay. So I want you to picture the scene without tearing me apart for not having all the details right. Okay. Can we handle that? I'm going to tell you a different story. Some of you remember, some of you got an invitation to this particular evening. I gave you a picture of 3 silhouettes on camels with the sun going down and a stable and, you know, the 3 people in there and some sheep off to the sides, right? That is a midrash. Okay. It's giving you a picture of something in your head that is not even remotely close to historical. All right. These 3, first of all, 3, we don't know. Camels, we don't know. Stable, almost definitely not. There's no stable mentioned in any of the texts, right? That kind of thing. Why would there be sheep out there next to the stables? That doesn't even make sense. Okay. But it's a story that we all accept. We all get it. You all put up a stable. Do you guys put a crutch or a stable in your living room somewhere? Yep. And where are the wise men? Are they like, you know, miles away?
2 years away.
Okay, a long ways away. But you have other things, right, in there. You have a stable.
Years away.
Yeah. You've got a stable, right?
That was them in the dining room, and they have to be to the living room.
And they travel in. Good. At least you're trying to be a little more historically accurate, or at least a little bit closer to the Matthew text. But you still have a stable, right? Everyone's got a stable, even though there's no stable mentioned in the text anywhere. Go ahead and look that up. And you all have in your mind an idea of an innkeeper who has no room for them, right? And if he's like, I'm sorry, we're full, right? But none of that's mentioned. Just says there's no room for them in the place, in the spot where they had thought they were going to be. So anyway, okay. So let's start with this midrash and answer some questions. First of all, where are these magi from? Okay. Maybe these magi are coming from Babylon or Parthia. Okay, that is somewhere on the other side of the Euphrates River, somewhere far away. So if we've got our map, you remember our map is all, this is going to be very important next week, but anytime you've got a map, you've got Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea, and you got the Mediterranean or the Great Sea over here, you've got Egypt, you've got Europe, you've got Persia, you've got Babylon, right? All these different places. This is Israel. These are the Ammonites. These are the Edomites. These are the Moabites. Actually, I've got that backwards. It's Ammonites and the Moabites. Okay, this is what our Israel is. They're coming from way over here. This is Jerusalem, right? This is Bethlehem. This is Ramah. Okay, Ramah is going to be very important for the second half that we're going to talk about next week. Just kind of making sure it sticks in your head a little bit. It's about 6 miles from here to here. Okay, it's also about 6 miles from here to here. It's like 800 miles from wherever they're coming from, Babylon. Okay, go ahead and do Siri. Go ahead and say Iraq to Jerusalem. See how many miles it is from Iraq to Jerusalem. It won't work, by the way, because Siri doesn't do Iraq, so you won't know. But it's a long ways away. Okay, I tried it. That's why I know. They're like, we don't work in Iraq, so there must be some reason they don't. Okay, so there's a bunch of these scholars from the East. That's what we know. They're from the East. Dream interpreters, astrologers, wise men, maybe astronomers and astrologers, right? All of these different things. And they've been studying the ancient scrolls for a long time. They've got lots of different sets of ancient scrolls. They're in one of the capital, a big, huge place, very important. Babylon has been important for years, right? Remember the Tower of Babylon. Okay, that's Genesis chapter 11. It's been a significant place in the world for millennia. By the time we get to this time, they've been conquered, of course, but they're still there. The Persians have conquered, Rome has conquered, remember Alexander the Great, then Rome, etc. But they're still around, and they are reading the ancient scrolls, and I'm guessing they would have read the book of Numbers. Okay, so Numbers chapter 24:17 has this great line in it. It says, "A star will come out of Jacob, a scepter will rise out of Israel." And people for hundreds of years had been waiting for that to happen. Okay, they were seeing this as something, a star, a scepter, a king is going to be born out of Israel. It was so well known, this theory, that some of the Caesars actually considered moving their throne to Jerusalem because this prophecy was so well known, not just to the Israelite people, but across that known world. Okay, so they thought, we want this to be us. This is where it's going to be. So, okay, so the king is going to reign over the entire world from Israel. So this is where the Magi are from. How did they learn about this? How did they get the Numbers this Numbers prophecy, or Isaiah or Ezekiel, which I think they had all of these things? How did they get these things? Well, if you go back in time, you'll remember that there was this group of people that were called Magi in the book of Daniel. Do you remember that? And the king of Babylon asks these Magi to interpret a dream for him. And the Magi try and they can't, and Daniel succeeds. Do you remember that story? Just tell me yes. You just pretend you agree with that. You remember that. All right. So now Daniel's a big wig in this place. Okay. During the Babylonian reign and the Persian reign, Darius and Nebuchadnezzar, right? Daniel shows up in both of these storylines. So one is a Persian, it doesn't matter. We don't need your history. But chances are good that he would have interacted with some of these Eastern Magi, these important people. In fact, things were probably, at their time, they probably had a pretty common religion, Zoroastrianism. You've probably heard of Zoroastrianism, but you don't have any idea what it's about, and you don't need to know a whole lot about what it is. But it was centuries old by the time of this. Okay, so this is a major religion that predates Christianity.
Persia, right?
That's okay. Yep, out of the same area, Babylon, Persia, the Eastern religions. So it's a Persian religion, more or less. And it's actually called Magianism. Okay, that's the other name for it. So we've got Zoroastrianism or Magianism, and its main principles are very similar to Yahwism, or to the Israelite monotheism, to their understanding of who God is. In fact, so they worship one good God, Zoroastrians did. They met this good God in a fire, just like Moses met this good God in a fire, and he would ultimately triumph over all evil, and he used humanity to defend order and good, like he co-partnered with man to make things just. All right, so you can see the basic line of thought would have been the same in Zoroastrianism and Yahwism. There's a lot of differences, but it would have been a good place to start. Your uncle considers himself a follower of Zoroastrianism? Wow, that's pretty cool. I don't know if it says anything else, but I can see just that little bit at the bottom of the screen. So, makes for fun Thanksgiving? Yes, I'm sure. All right, so, I mean, and this is close to our understanding of Yahwism at the time. So Daniel's spending time with these Magi. Almost certainly they had read his holy scrolls, including this book, this place from Numbers, all these stories about Yahweh. And it's likely that they grabbed some of their ideas from Zoroastrianism in with other ideas of Yahwism and the Hebrew Bible. And because this is what happens when you have conversations with other religions, you start pulling in other things and trying to make yours a little bit better and trying to figure out which one is more right. So they've read Numbers 24, and so they know about a star. and they're thinking about a star. And their understanding is that there would be signs in the heavens and things like that. So now we've got a star. So what is this star? I don't know if anybody's ever watched like the Christmas Star. There's a DVD that all the good evangelicals have to watch to prove that this is historical. But it has all kinds of great ideas on it about what stars are. I mean, we know what a star is, but what happened at this particular time. And all of these ideas, they really did happen during this time. So like there was an Aquila constellation that all lined up just right. Let's see. Or there was a nova, sorry, in the Aquila constellation. There was Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus all converged at the same time. And Jupiter and the Regulus, or the Lion Star, all converged. So there's some movements up in the stars that were happening around this time that we can look back and know that this happened. So that's a possibility, right? We're talking about a real, actual flaming ball of gas up in space that told them to follow. So this is astrology, right? Like we're following the stars. It tells us something. Okay, it's not actually like, some people would say meteor moving. Seems a little unlikely. It's kind of hard to follow a meteor, unless it's going really, really slow for 800 miles as they're walking. But I mean, it's God, right? It's a miracle. So it could be a really slow moving star for a very long time. Okay. All right. So that's what we got with the star so far. We're going to get into the star in much more depth, though, in just a second. We just want to keep answering some questions in my midrash, in my story. So they're watching some star, they're doing something up there. And who are they? Right? We know there's Zoroastrians, maybe the Magi from the East. How many are there? We all know this. We all know the story, right? We've all sang the song. We three kings of Orient are. Okay. So we know they're from the Orient, which just means they're from the East. And we know that there are three, and we know that somehow they're kings as well. So are they Magi? Are they kings? Are they wise men? Are they astronomers? Are they scribes? Okay, we're playing, right? We're playing. So John MacArthur says these are kingmakers. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of John MacArthur. That doesn't mean he's wrong about everything he says. He's actually got some brilliant things that he's got to say. He says these people are kingmakers. They would have had the power to predict who is going to become the king or where the king is going to come out of. And so when they show up, there would not have been three of them. There would have been perhaps hundreds of them. Or if there weren't hundreds of the actual Magi, there might be dozens of them and hundreds in an entourage, which makes sense when they get to Herod, why Herod is so very troubled. Okay, because they're coming and they're asking the king about where the king is. You can imagine there'd be some trouble. I don't know. I don't see an awful lot of evidence about that particularly, but certainly there are not three. Or rather, let's say there doesn't have to be three, right? All we know is there's a plurality. Okay, we know that there's more than one. We know that there are three gifts: gold, frankincense, myrrh. That's why we get the idea of three. And there's the 7th century. That is a long time later, right? Half a millennia later, there's a story about 3 wise men who travel on camels, and their names are, what is it? Casper, Melchior, and Balthazar, I think.
Gasper.
Gasper? Okay.
Yeah.
Not a friendly ghost. Gasper. I can't remember. I'm guessing I probably read that text at one point, but I don't remember anymore. But good job, Todd, for nailing that one down. All right. So it's obviously a fictional story about them. It's, again, a midrash telling you a story to get across something. All right. So they would have gone 800 miles probably in order to get there. That's a month of riding to find this King Herod, the king of the Jews. And it makes sense that he'd be a little intimidated by this extravagant, confident men who are looking for something important, whether they're kingmakers or not. They're significant, and they're coming from the East, and they would rattle people. Okay, but Herod's reaction we'll put off, right? I don't want to deal with that today because I want to get to the Ezekiel and Isaiah stuff. That's really exciting for me. All right, so the star, back to the star now. So they've come these 800 miles. they're following some sort of a star that we don't know anything about, and he sends them on their way again. Maybe the star shows up again. Something happens, resting over the place, it says, where the child was. And I can guess there's going to be a lot of joy when they find it, excessive. Like you can imagine they would have taken off as the star shows up again, and everybody would have gotten out of their ways as they're heading for, 6 miles down the road. They made it these 800 and so miles, and now they've just got to go 6 miles more. They're almost there. This is pretty exciting for them. And this comet, meteor, whatever it is that's there. Go ahead, Josh.
Which I believe, if angels are coming to Joseph and Mary, why does it have to be a meteor, something that we understand? Why does it have to be a meteor comet? Why can't it just be a light in the sky?
Yeah, I think actually, that's
why I laughed so hard when he said like slow moving meteor. It's like that's not logical. I mean, we're not looking for logic per se here, but
right.
But yeah, it's God here we're talking about. So this is going to be something magnificent.
Yeah,
and miraculous.
So Edersheim is an Old Testament scholar. I'm not sure why I'm writing his name down. Like you're all going to go out and read him, but Edersheim says exactly what you're saying right now. He says that why do we have to have some sort of like an actual star? Isn't it possible? In fact, the star there could be translated by light or the word fire even. Okay, not actually star. So if we've got fire, does that take you back to the Old Testament at all for anything? Has God ever led his people anywhere by using fire?
Like in a pillar?
Yeah, a pillar of fire out of Egypt, right? Pillar at night, cloud by day. And the whole thing that started all that was a fiery bush. Like fire seems to be a pretty consistent thing that God uses. Okay, so maybe this isn't a star at all in that sense, but maybe just the glory of God, which is always glory. The word glory means light, right? It's shining, it's fiery, it's a blazing. So that's the whole idea here. So maybe it's the glory of God that they're following. Maybe there's some weird thing that just came and said, and they just knew, we've got to follow this. We've got to go. Okay, so now they're on their way. So now we get to Ezekiel. Okay, so now you've got to put on your thinking caps a little bit more, because this is where things get a little bit strange.
That would also kind of fit with the whole, like, the kingdom is already here and some of us can see it, but some of us don't, sort of thing.
Yes, good. Yeah, which would explain why they're seeing it, but not everyone else is. It's the beginning of opening their eyes. And let's be honest, I mean, Matthew and Mark use that theme a lot, the opening of their eyes. Remember that God heals the blind man only partially. And then he says, I see like trees walking around, and then he heals them the rest of the way. That's not because Jesus, he can't do it. It's because the whole theme of this book is that Jesus keeps doing things to open the eyes of the disciples. And so they're using these little stories to show that they're almost getting it, almost, even up until the last moment, right? They still don't fully get it until the Holy Spirit comes on them and moves them. Or the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah glory, the movement of God. All right, so let's go back to this prophecy. So here you go. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people, Israel. Okay, so this is chapter 2, verse 6 and 7. Verse 2, just verse 6, sorry. Out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people, Israel. All right, now, all of you know where that comes from, right? Let's do your Bible study now. Where are you gonna find this from? If you don't know where it is, you've got a Bible in front of you. You can probably figure it out. I'm guessing everyone has a Bible that tells them where this comes from.
Micah 5.
Micah 5. Okay, so this is Micah 5:2. In my NIV, it tells me that, or we could just, Angela can just tell all of us where it was. Okay, Micah 5:2 is where we're at. But if you read Micah 5:2, oh, you know what? Let's just do it. You can find Micah. You find it? Anybody find it? I'll never find it. It's in this weird thing that we call the 12. Oh my goodness. Did anybody find it? Somebody read it for me. All right. I know. All right, I've got it. Micah 5:2. All right, so it says, but you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, we won't get into the difference there, though you are not, though you are small, it's more or less the same. Out of you will come one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. Okay, so ruler, but no shepherd. So the shepherd is added in there because the same story is going to come. If you look back at Matthew again. You guys are doing your own Bible study right now, right in here. If you look, I don't know if it's in my NIV. Let's see. I know it's in my ESV. Who will be shepherd of my people Israel. Do you see any other text that this comes from? 2 Samuel 5:2, mine says. That's not helpful to me. And then Micah 5:2 again in a different place. Okay, so my NIV doesn't catch this. Okay, remember these are just scholars who are trying to make connections and stuff. But my ESV did catch this in chapter 34, Ezekiel 34:23. Okay, so now I'm going back there. 34:23. I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them. He will tend them and be their shepherd. I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince or ruler among them. I, the Lord, have spoken. Now, I'm guessing you don't know Ezekiel very well because it's an incredibly, terribly hard book to read and to figure out what's happening. I know at least one person's reading it right now, but it's not something you usually pick up just for fun and read Ezekiel. So we don't really know what the story's about. But Ezekiel's this really weird prophet who does weird things like shaving his beard and laying on one side for a certain amount of days, then flipping over and laying on the other side. And he builds this whole model and then he sets it on fire. And there's just some weird things going on in this prophet. And most of it is woes to certain countries. He's telling them how terrible they are and that they need to fix themselves up. But in there is this idea, in fact, chapter 34 at the top of my NIV, it says shepherds and sheep. It's all about the Israel shepherds who were supposed to take care of their sheep. But if you read through the whole chapter, you're going to see not only do they not take care of their sheep, they end up eating their sheep. Okay, it's just a great little, it's just a storyline to say, you know how shepherds are supposed to take care of sheep? Yeah, these are carving up their sheep. So shepherds are kings or rulers, and they're supposed to be taking care of Israel, and they're not. They're actually blowing it big time. It's a terrible thing. And in this, what?
Cannibals.
They're cannibals, yes. Not really. Just getting across the idea that they're a mess. These princes, these rulers are not what they're supposed to be. And so God has had it. He makes a promise in Ezekiel that one day there will be a shepherd who will take care of it. Perfect. Who will take care of all of this. Okay, that's the promise. One shepherd will one day come. Now, hopefully your mind is already going into the New Testament where Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, I see. Ezekiel is really important to the New Testament. In fact, you can't read the book of Revelation without knowing Ezekiel inside and out. It doesn't make any sense. The whole temple idea and the trees and all that stuff all come from the book of Ezekiel. So you've got to read that. But here's what I'm saying is, I think Matthew is saying this idea that the shepherd will eventually come is coming true right now. Okay, I think that's what's happening. So I think he's grabbing hold of this passage in Micah and this idea and this particular verse in Ezekiel, and he's putting them together, maybe in a way that he's, purposefully penning the words in a certain way, or maybe just this general idea of a ruler and being a shepherd is put together because he knows his just Old Testament. He knows the themes that are going on there. So I'm thinking
Matthew actually has the Micah 4 as well, like a 5:4 in the same section there talks about shepherd, like two verses down.
It does keep going into the shepherd, because the shepherd and the ruler are the same, right? So good point. Thank you for bringing that up, because I stopped at Micah 5:2,
Is that Brad?
but that was Matt. Yep, with a great point there. So, but I think Ezekiel's being brought in here because the shepherd theme here is big. So, and by the way, remember, this is all midrash. So I have no idea what Matthew has in his mind right now. Okay, we're just playing. We're playing in the text and seeing if this happens to work. But because I know that there's a redemptive historical movement taking place through all the Bible, and I know that these New Testament authors are like ninjas when it comes to literature and what they're doing and how they're grabbing hold of ideas and themes and motifs, I don't think this is very far-fetched. So chapter 11, verse 23 in Ezekiel. I think Matthew, here's what I'm saying. I think Matthew has the whole book of Ezekiel in mind when he's making his story up, when he's creating the story. I don't mean that he's creating a fictional story, but he's wrapping it around this big picture idea. 11:23 says this: the glory of the Lord went up from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it. Okay, so the whole story of Ezekiel is about the Holy Spirit having had enough of Israel, and to the point that he divorces Israel and leaves. It's a really sad story, but the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah glory, comes up out of the temple, goes out the back, and heads east and rests over the mountains to the east. Okay, so he's disappeared from Israel and he's traveled maybe into exile, and he's left the temple. Okay, now this is how Ezekiel sees it. Okay, it's not how everybody sees it. So that's the larger theme of what's going on in Ezekiel, that he leaves Judah, travels away into exile with Babylon, with the people of God, perhaps. And even after the people of God return to the land, there seems to be this looming question or looming sadness that even after the people have gone back, it's like the temple is never filled with a spirit again, right? Read through the book of Haggai. A lot of the 12 prophets, right, or the restoration prophets, the ones after they've come back at the end, they're frustrated. Like there's nothing like what it used to be. And so when you get to the New Testament, what you have is a people that are still in exile. They're still without the Spirit the way they want. They came back to the land, they're excited about that, but it's almost like God hasn't come with them, at least in the book of Ezekiel. And so this theme, that's how Ezekiel sets it up, but at least in some of the prophets, he hasn't returned with them. So now we have, I think what Matthew's probably playing with is this idea of Spirit returning to Jerusalem finally, or returning to Judah. That Spirit who's left and settled in the east has now finally starting to make his way back to where he should be. Okay? And it just looks even cooler. Like there's another book called The Revelation of the Magi, which is in Syriac. It's about 200 years after Jesus dies, where they have, where the Magi actually follow the Christ child from Persia, Babylon, all the way through. And then the Christ child basically comes over the house or wherever it is, and then becomes incarnate at that moment and is born or something. I can't remember how the story exactly, but they follow the Christ child there. That's the fiery presence, the Shekinah glory that's coming, that Jesus and the Holy Spirit is kind of merged together into one, and there they come and they worship him. All right. Okay, so you have the big picture idea that I'm trying to get across? Interesting.
The Babylonians took God away to Babylon, and now the Babylonians have to come visit God in Jerusalem because he's back in Jerusalem.
Right. Yep. They followed the Spirit back. I might not say that they. Yeah, I guess taking him away is good. I would rather say he left on his own accord, and that's why they were able to come in and conquer.
He left because Israel was a foreign.
That's right. Israel had given up on him, so he said, "Fine, I'm out." Right? Which is always the story in the Old Testament, right? Whenever Israel loses at a battle, it's because Israel messed up And Yahweh said, I'm not going to fight for you then. But that's always the case. That's how they interpret their failures in battle, is because they've sinned in some way. Okay, so here's what I think. I think Matthew and Luke are trying to get across a very similar story. And I think it's interesting. Hannah, who is getting over COVID and couldn't come, but she and I are having a little texting thing. She said, it's interesting that we always tell the Christmas story. It's always Luke that we tell. And then at the last minute, or actually it might have been Corrine actually. And then at the last minute, we throw in Matthew kind of at the end. But I really think the Matthew and Luke story might actually be the same story told with different characters. They're trying to get across something very similar, at least. That is glory radiating from the heavens, the return of Yahweh, and the birth of the shepherd king. I think both of them are trying to get this across. So I'll give you another big name. Robert Gundry is his name. He got kicked out of the Evangelical Theological Society some 30 or 40 years ago, I can't remember, over this discussion in Matthew, that Matthew is a midrash of Luke. So what I just did was I gave you my own midrash, my own sermonizing story to make it interesting, bringing all that stuff together. What he thinks, and I think he's got some really good points in this, is that Matthew is taking Luke's story. Luke's is more historical, and he is midrashing on that. He's adding in different details for a different group of people to show something similar, but not exactly the same.
He's writing to Jews and Luke's writing to Gentiles.
That's true. Luke is writing to Gentiles or outcasts or people who are marginalized, and Matthew more to the Israel elite, to the more important people. Yep. All right. So both stories, though, have visitors come to visit this child, and both stories have great joy, and both stories have this overwhelming light that takes them to the place that they're supposed to go. Right? You may not have noticed that before, but they both have the same kinds of stories. So that's why he's saying they're both trying to get across the same picture. So now, take that idea, jump back to the Isaiah passage that everybody's been waiting for, Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for your light is come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Okay? So this is what we've been waiting for, the nations to come. So for Luke, shepherds, poor shepherds. For Matthew, the nations will come to your dawn, right? Will rise. We need the people from afar to come. Just as under Solomon, the Queen of Sheba comes and people come to see the incredible glory of God. Now we have this foreign country coming to see the glory of our God, that the light has again risen. Okay? And Luke is going to go into all the story. Like Luke is going to tell you the same basic story about darkness being replaced by light. And he's going to start with an angel coming to Zechariah to tell him that he's going to have a son that's going to prepare the way for Jesus to come later on. Right? So what, all of a sudden we've got a light coming to tell them these things. And by the way, he's going to tell them all these Isaiah things, right? The whole point is that a voice will be heard crying out in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord. That's all Isaiah. He's supposed to flatten the hills and raise up the valleys and make crooked ways straight, right? All so that the new king can come, so the new light can shine, can come through, and all of this stuff. What is yours? Darkness and light. Also what? I can't see it.
The main things at the opening of John's gospel.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
He's
Light
just not telling it the same way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't seen that before.
Yep. Yeah. John is also a very big part of this. All right. So, but Luke continues, right? After Zechariah and John and this preparation thing, Luke 2, what happens in Luke 2? Right from the very beginning, we have a decree sent out for Caesar Augustus. Mary has this child that is announced by millions of glowing angels. Okay, so the angels really are going to be a reflection of the star. And by the way, angels in the Old Testament are called the heavenly host. They're stars, right? And everybody worshiped these stars, at least throughout a lot of Israelite time period. They would have been worshiping different stars or different gods. They would have come. So we have stars and we have angels being connected in the same way. Jesus is in the temple. There are 3 temple scenes in Luke chapter 2, right? First one is with Simeon, where he holds him up and he says, "Consolation of Israel," and even now I'm midrashing, as if he's holding him up in the sky like he's, Simba the child as he's holding out and everybody's bowing down. This is my picture of what Simeon's doing, right? Consolation of Israel and a light, right? A light to the nations, he says. And then you've got this next, Anna comes in the same story, right? The old covenant has to end so that the new covenant can come in. The older generation is gone. And then he's in the temple and he's arguing with the scholars, the scribes in there. He's having conversations about prophecy and things like that. So if you don't see Luke as getting across one main point here, that the glory of the temple has returned, right? Following on Malachi, where Malachi says that the glory has gone, and Ezekiel says the glory is gone, and Luke comes back and says, here's Jesus hanging out in the temple. Why? Why is he hanging out in the temple? It's to connect all of this together. The glory has returned. The Shekinah glory has come back to the temple. Yeah. I wish I was preaching this, because then that would be my moment of like, do you see? Right? Okay. It's just, but I'm teaching it. I don't know how to go from there. All right. What they're waiting for has finally happened, right? The glory has returned from the temple to the temple. So Matthew wants us to know that the glory light that returns to Israel is not for Israel alone. It's for the nations. It's for the Queen of Sheba. It's for these Magi, the Persians, the Parthians, the Babylonians are all coming. That's the idea of it. And Matthew's going to continue right into chapter 5. Let's see, what's Sermon on the Mount? Don't hide. All I can think of is light shine, right? Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine, right? That's where he's going with all of that. After the salt, it goes to the light thing.
The city on the hill that cannot be hidden.
There you go. That's what I was working for.
Yep.
Yeah, city on a hill or a town on a hill cannot be hidden. Will someone put it under a bush, put it under a bowl? No, of course not. So, and then Philippians is going to say, Paul will say, we live as children of God in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights to the world. Lights in the world. John will say, walk in the light as he is in the light. And like Josh just said, the book of John, not just later on in 1 John, but in the book of John, it's all about these light themes. Right? He was not that light. John was not that light, but he spoke about that light that was coming. Right? All that stuff is in
Romans 11:36.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Glory in all things, give God glory.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Glory. In
Yep.
Yeah. So the lights. So the glory is returned, and we're supposed to reflect it. Got an elders meeting in a few minutes, so they're coming in. All right. So let's apply, because I know I've only got a few minutes here.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Good. So let's apply this. We're looking at the star, the awesome star that Matt Davis had on his tree. Okay, because I've never seen one quite as glorious as that. Okay, and you're thinking about this. What is it you're supposed to come to? What are you supposed to be thinking about with all of this? Because this is a message for you. It's a theological message about Jesus and the glory returning to the temple, but it should grab hold of you in some way and move you in the world as well. So what does that look like? What does it look like for you to be lights of the world? Who is it that you're going to bring this light to this Christmas? You've got 2 weeks before it happens. You can choose to either beat people up at, at Kohl's for whatever the last thing is that you were going to get for Christmas, or you can choose to give them an encouraging, light-filled word. perhaps. You can remember that some of the people at church are hurting like crazy this Christmas, and not assume that everybody has your nice, beautiful, perfect family and is happy like you are. How are you going to be a light to them? How about people, I mean, let's just be very, very literal. How about people who don't have enough to pay for light this Christmas? Are you looking for ways that you can alternatively give to some place, that some person who needs that? My guess is you could probably ask people at your church, find out if there's somebody who's in need.
How are we reflecting the light?
Yeah, how do you reflect it?
Yeah.
Remember, this is Tom Wright's idea that we hold a mirror up, and God reflects, his glory reflects on us, and we have this angled mirror, and it beams out. So they're not supposed to see you, they're supposed to see Jesus in you. They're supposed to be the glory, the light of God in you. So what's it going to look like?
Buying my wife a Christmas gift.
Buying your wife a Christmas gift. All right, good. That's a good one. And it's actually legit. I mean, I don't know if it's enough, but I know you were kidding, but it's actually not. I mean, that is part, right?
So I have an organization here in town called One Warsaw, and we bought gifts for everybody at the senior center in town that don't necessarily have family to look out for them. And we're going to go, I'm going to play Santa Claus, and we're going to give them all gifts on Thursday.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Okay. All right. Now, is that going to reflect God in any way?
There will be no explicit discussion of God, but it's sharing love with other people.
Okay. Yep. And that does make the world a better place. I'm in.
The youth.
Yeah. Youth? What about?
Well, we're going to have a message about being a reflection of Jesus, being a reflection of the light is coming.
Okay.
And then we're going to give them, our church is giving them each gift, and they know that's coming. They know it's coming from a place that loves Jesus. So,
right.
So it's yeah. So.
Yeah, so our church is giving gifts to all the youth that don't come to our church too. Lots of them just come for the games and fun and food, and we're blessing them with gifts. And yeah, these are coming from Jesus. That's awesome. It might be as simple as just smiling, when you're in your checkout line.
I think David Foster Wallace has like a graduation speech about it, when he was alive, about meeting God in the mundane, just in the checkout line, like you just said. Like, this is where we're at most of our lives. How do we reflect God's Shekinah glory and
good
traffic?
Yeah.
Maybe just like I guess it's more of a spiritual practice, but you could, so are you familiar with the phrase namaste? People say it to each other. So that means like the divine in me. Yeah, namaste. It means the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. And so if you want to switch that, use Paul's language, the Christ in me recognizes the Christ in you, the light in me recognizes the light in you. Nice. So as a spiritual practice, as you're going about your day, you can be reminded to see the light in others as well.
I like that.
Shalom.
That's good. Shalom, peace. Yeah, giving peace to people.
Peace and justice.
Justice.
Shalom is so much more than just peace.
Yeah, it is. It's good. Remember, these angels show up an awful lot, right? So the angel that announced the birth of John, the angel that announced the birth of Jesus. Remember, an angel announced that he is gone, that he is risen from the dead. Like, there's this light. And I feel like those are things that we need to be announcing. Whether the incarnation is more important than the resurrection, or the resurrection is more important than the ascension, the debates of last week, especially in our after party. Yeah, I think the angels, the light announces each one of these things. And then 40 days later, remember the light indwell all of us. The tongues of fire come on the disciples, and they're moved by the Spirit, who's this spirit of fire in the world. So I really feel like that fire star angels light theme is meant to be pulled all together. There's a story in our last, what do we have, like 1 minute left? Probably 5 minutes. Okay. There's a story of a Hindu trader in India, and he once asked a missionary, what do you put on your face to make it shine? Okay. And I love that little story, that question. And he says, the missionary is shocked, and he answered, I don't put anything on it. And the Hindu began to lose patience. He speaks more forcefully, like, no, you put something on your face that makes it glow and do all of that stuff. And all of you people who keep talking about Jesus, you've all got the same thing. I've seen it in the towns of Agra and Surat, and even in the city of Bombay. And then suddenly this Christian gets this idea in his head that he understood. My face glows with the light of Christ. There's something different about us. He said, now I know what you mean, and I'll tell you the secret. It's not something we put on from the outside, but something that comes from within.
Can I steal that?
It's the reflection of the light of God in our hearts.
Steal
Yeah.
that from you.
You can.
Thursday.
I stole it from somebody. Yeah.
Like, what about someone who says like, oh, he's on fire for the Lord?
Yeah, that's kind of,
Yeah.
So yeah, it all started back at the burning bush. And then you could take them, the Shekinah glory, take them through, and the Shekinah glory left, but it came back in the temple.
So bad.
When the flames of fire came down on us. Yeah, it's all connecting this story. So I have no idea if all of my little midrash stuff is right or not. I'm not a New Testament scholar, but I did use a lot of New Testament scholars to come up with that stuff. The big picture is right. That line that is happening, whether Matthew is thinking of Ezekiel at this time, I don't 100% know, but I know that big move is. So that explains my name. Ah, yes, very nice, Dr. Blaze. Well done. Blaze. Yeah. It's going to be a sad day if you ever have to change that name. You have to keep it no matter what. Just be Dr. Blaze. It'll be your nickname regardless.
Fair.
The light will shine everywhere. And it does. Even though she's not showing herself, the smile is always, everything is turned into happiness and joy and sunshine. So she's pretty awesome. All right. Anybody have anything else they want to add into all that?
Josh asked a question earlier about, is there a connection to this idea from the crucifixion story when the curtain is torn and God isn't in there?
Huh. And God isn't in there. So you said Josh asked this question? Of course Josh asked this question because he likes the idea of this.
I think it was when you were talking about the return of God to the temple or somewhere around there, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, so like if God like left the temple and then returned, and then during the crucifixion narrative, you have this image of the temple curtain being torn open, and like it's like, whoa, it's like empty. So like, can that be interpreted, I guess, in some way? Like, does that connect at all? Maybe it's a stupid question, but like that came to mind. I was like, what is the significance of that, if any?
Or if we're following a different theme, so like God leaves again, and then he comes back at 40 days later. So like he left, then he came back, then he left, then he came back again.
No, because Jesus is there the whole time, right? So I don't think there's a movement back and forth. Yeah, I think the symbolism there is simply that the presence of God is found in Christ. And we now have entrance. We can now access God, through the curtain, through Jesus specifically. I think that's what they're doing, but that's interesting. I have to think deeper about that. As always, when you ask a question, I think I've got to go a little further and think that through. So I have to remember who's telling that story about the ripped curtain. Is it Matthew?
I don't remember.
Yeah, so I'd want to know what theme is trying to be traced, or if they're trying to do that. Is it a tabernacle theme? Is it a light theme? What are they doing? And it could be mixing of them, of course, but I don't know.
Yeah, because I think it still works with the idea of like Christ, like Christ being the fulfillment. Like I think that still works. It's just now like, okay, so the Spirit is located everywhere. That's kind of the idea, right? Like the Spirit is no longer bound up in the temple, but now
Now
Been given to everybody, or if we want to have a theological argument, you can say it's given to the people of God. And
I think that's what Paul would say.
sure,
Matthew 27:50. When Jesus had cried out in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. The tombs broke open. It's Matthew.
Yeah, so the dead coming alive. Right, and that's all playing with motifs, because there's no way Matthew can know that it flipped from the top to the bottom. And we have no other stories of people coming alive. So this is all, I mean, Gundry would say, we'll just leave it at, Gundry would say this is all midrash in order to make a larger point. I don't need to, I'll be like Tim Mackey. I won't answer the question of what I think. We'll just say there are some scholars who think these things.
Mark says from top to bottom too.
Yep, well, Matthew is borrowing from Mark, probably, in that. And they both have similar themes that they're trying to get across. All right, my time's up. No after party for me, but I'm sure that Travis and Josh will hang out and talk about those themes that we just talked about, that thing we just talked about, and probably more. I heard something else in Josh's question. I thought you were going to go with the divine magician stuff, but he wasn't there. That it was all.
that's too much inside baseball. That would assume that, like, I can have a pretty safe assumption that most people here are like somewhat like they've read the Bible, right? Because it's a Bible study.
Yeah.
But if we just start throwing out like obscure books, that is just like not inclusive.
Good for you. I didn't think you thought like that, but well done. Yeah. But now you guys can have your deep conversation. But I have to go moderate. Oh yeah, now you come on. Hi, Karen. Nice to see you. Sure, thanks. All right.
They say something profound for the goodbye.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone's here for the goodbye. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yes, she wants to. That's what's happening. Karen is coming for the after party so she can hang out with Travis and Josh. Man, somebody just
I'm working.
just delete her. Just. All right.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
I'll see you all later. Nice to see you, Casey. And